Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking through every single book that I read in the month of August. If you've been watching my vlogs, then you will know a lot of the books that I've read in August, but there's also a few that I have not been vlogging, and honestly, they're the ones that I enjoyed more. So if you were expecting this to be a very negative video, then you're probably going to be right. If you've been watching my vlogs, I didn't have the best luck this month with the stuff that I was reading, and we'll go through all of that together. Obviously, if you want my in-depth thoughts as I'm reading things, then why aren't you watching my vlogs? But I want to run through everything I've been reading this month, and it is around 13 books, which is on the lower end for me. Still kind of within my normal range, but I always do find I really slow down in the summer. I think this month we'll start off with my lowest rated books, and I do have a 1-star book this month. And I have a 1.5-star book as well, which is actually quite rare for me. I think if I manage to make it through a book, I usually don't rate it at least 1 star because there's something there for me. But this one, it was a 1 star. And I've just learned my lesson with this author. And that is unfortunately this book, The Premonition by Banana Yoshimoto. This is a very well-beloved book and also author. I've read also Kitchen by the same author, and I also really didn't like that. I was expecting something very different from everything I've heard about this author. I was expecting to love it. I thought maybe I'll try a newer release and see if I can get into this author. No, this one was even worse. This is about a young woman. I don't know how to talk about this book and not spoil it for you, but I'm just gonna go, if you want to read this, maybe skip this portion, but I'm just gonna go probably into the full spoilers to explain why I didn't like it. I don't usually do full spoilers. I try and keep it spoiler free, but for this one I have to, because otherwise you're not going to be able to understand my ranting. So basically this is about a young girl who lives with a seemingly absolutely perfect family. Her parents are amazing, they love her, she gets on great with her brother, they're like best friends, she kind of is doing well in life in general, but she kind of has this feeling about her past that she's like maybe forgotten something, or that there's something people are not telling her. And she then decides to kind of run away from her family home, which apparently she does quite often, even though she's got a very perfect life. And she runs away to go and stay with her aunt, who is like this very mysterious character. She lives all alone in this quite crumbling down house. She has a very strange routine. She's a teacher, but she's a very isolated and insular person, but she's kind of obsessed with her aunt and she really loves her, even though they don't really talk very often. Basically, throughout this book, it's revealed, and it's revealed quite suddenly, not through anything to do with the plot. It's just kind of remembered by this girl that her aunt actually isn't her aunt, but it's her sister. And this just kind of comes basically out of nowhere, as if it's just resurfacing and kind of as a memory. And it's just like, oh yeah, I guess I always knew that's why I really loved my aunt. And then the aunt is kind of like, oh, okay, amazing, now you know. I can tell you basically this really traumatic thing that happened to me and you, and the reason why, we're not living together. And she tells the story about this very traumatic event where their parents died, and then this family took them in, but she didn't want to go and live with them. She wanted to live on her own, kind of in her grief, basically. But they all lied to this young girl, saying that she was her aunt instead, and that she was raised in this perfect family, basically. This girl is kind of like, well, I want to be friends with my sister now that now we know, now I've remembered, we can reconnect. But the aunt has mysteriously disappeared for seemingly no reason that's actually explained. But in the meantime of this, also, she is talking a lot with her brother, and there is a very strong undercurrent. Even in the beginning of this, the very, very beginning of this book, there is a slightly it's a very, very close relationship with this brother, and she feels really deeply for him, and he feels really deeply for her. When it's kind of revealed then that they're actually not brother and sister, bear in mind, they are late teens at this point. They have always thought that they're brother and sister. She basically says, yeah, well, I've always actually been in love with him. And she's kind of fully letting herself admit that now, because they're not related, even though they've been brought up as brother and sister. They are still brother and sister. They live in the same house. They call mum and dad the same mum and dad. But yeah, as soon as it's revealed that they're not actually brother and sister, she starts up a relationship with her brother. like very, very quickly. It's very, very strange. Also, then they go, the brother and sister go off on this kind of journey to try and find the aunt / the sister. But in the meantime, she's still calling her auntie, and she's still calling her brother her brother. She's not like suddenly changed her mind about what she calls her sister. Even though she knows her sister is her sister, she still calls her aunt throughout the whole book. Anyway, it turns out there's also this young student who the aunt was teaching, was also going to look for the aunt because she was in a relationship with him. She then got pregnant by her young student and then told him she was going to have an abortion. He was really upset and then came and looking for her, and they'd been having this very like taboo student-teacher relationship as well. But also the way that the relationships in this are dealt with, they're not taboo in the book. It's not like a kind of exploration about these difficult relationships. They are literally barely explored. It's just like kind of like this really like this romance subplot that's just kind of meant to be nice, and it's kind of meant to be like, oh, like I'm so happy that I'm in love with someone who loves me. It's literally not explored at all that they are brother and sister, or that there's a student kind of teacher relationship. It's only used as a kind of, oh my god, my aunt is so kind of crazy and kooky. There's nothing deeper there, and it's just nuts. The whole book doesn't really make any sense. It's really, really quick. It's like 120 pages maybe. But basically it's just about this girl realizing and remembering what happened to her, and it's very traumatic. But mainly the takeaway was, what? I just read it and I was like, what is actually going on with this book? I don't understand it. If you read this and you loved it, please tell me what the point was. What were they trying to get across? And I don't get it. I really, really did not like this one. I don't mind like explorations of taboo relationships if that's the point of the book. If you were trying to say something with those relationships, but they were just thrown in there so randomly without anything. Anyway, so I didn't like this one. That was 1 star. I didn't get much from it. It was kind of, I didn't like the writing style as well. There's a lot of issues I had with this book, like, but the number one thing was just utter confusion and just like, what the hell am I reading? So that's a 1 star from me. Next up, we have a book that I have been reading for the Booker Prize long list challenge that I'm doing, where I'm reading all of them. And this one's probably my least favourite so far, and that is Flesh. This one is a case, I think, of it's a good book, but it's just really not for me. I can see why people would like this one, but it's just everything about it conspired to work against, you know, me liking it. I didn't like the writing style. I didn't like the main character. I didn't like the main kind of like ethos of what it was trying to say, and I just didn't find it very interesting, ultimately. This is the story all about a man, and you're basically following him from when he's about 15 years old until he's a very old man. And you are following him after this very kind of like tumultuous relationship that he has when he is a young teen with an older woman. And the way that that relationship plays out really affects him for basically the rest of his life. Unfortunately, the way that it affected him is by making him a very, very passive, stoic character, which I don't like following. Like, I think this is a way to explore that can be interesting, but my god, I was so bored with this man. I did not care. The way in which also the book is structured is there's big time jumps all the way along through his life. So a lot of the book, I'd be like getting maybe more interested in a scene or like wondering how he's going to get out of this situation, and then there'd be a big time jump and you'd be like many years in the future, and that situation is no longer relevant. That character is no longer part of their life, and you've just completely moved on. I also think that if this was trying to explore the idea of a very ordinary man's life, then it didn't quite achieve that either, because this is someone who extremely extraordinary events happen constantly, but they don't change as a person beyond their initial, like when they were 15 years old, they stay basically as the same person all the way to the end. And I didn't like them. I didn't even dislike them. I was just really bored by this person and I didn't want to read their life story, basically. The main issue I had with actually reading this book though is the dialogue. It's insane to read and it makes me feel like I'm being crazy because he's so passive and so silent. Anytime anyone is having a conversation with him or trying to ask him a question, he repeats the question and then gives a 1-word answer. And that answer is usually okay or sure. And it drove me crazy. I had to end up listening to this as a audiobook because it was less jarring to listen to, because when I was physically reading it, there's just pages and pages of like taken up with dialogue that says nothing. Nothing is happening. Someone is trying to get something from him, find out an emotion, find out a bit of information, and he gives them nothing. And he gives us nothing as the reader as well. There's a lot of blank space in this. And I think you could enjoy this book if that's something that you enjoy. If you enjoy this style of writing, definitely understand where people would get things from this book. And it just left me feeling very like, I don't care anymore. By the end of it, I just couldn't care. So that is Flesh. Unfortunately, about a 1.75 stars, maybe a 1.5 stars. Let's talk about briefly a book that I read 65% of and then DNF'd. Probably I should have talked about this one first because this is not even going to be rated. This is like a 0 rating because I DNF'd it, but I do want to mention it here because I got a significant way through this book and it's absolutely massive. And that is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. So I read about that much of this book and then gave up on it because I just couldn't deal with it anymore. She's not a bad writer and she doesn't have bad ideas, and that's why I held on for so long, but there is just something about the way that she tells these stories, and I felt the same as well about the first one in this series, which is A Prior of the Orange Tree, is that it just doesn't come together. It's like it needs a strong edit and it needs a stronger, I don't know, like central spine within this story. It felt so sprawling, which sometimes is nice because you really get to explore this world, and I do think she's done so much good work with the world building in this, but then it feels really spread out but really shallow because there's nothing drawing it together strong and cohesively in the middle for you to like follow this thread through. And I just didn't like it enough. It was like spread out but like very thin. It wasn't complex enough for it to be like, you know, like a Game of Thrones-y type thing where there's like so many different things going on and you're all spread out, and like sometimes you get really lost in a different chapter, but then like it's interesting because it's complex on its own. It all felt very shallow for me and I just had to end up not reading it. I might go back to this and finish it off, but not when I'm trying to read like all of the Booker Prize books and not while it's the summer, because I just think, I don't know, I've got like less patience in the summer maybe. Next up is actually a book that I have not talked about yet, but I'm doing a vlog currently for this book, so it's in the Booker Prize, the next Booker Prize vlog. I'm not going to tell you anything I think about it. I'm just going to tell you the rating and then we're going to move on, and you have to wait for the vlog to see my experience of reading this one. But the next one I want to talk about is The South, and I rated this 2 stars. And that's all I'm going to say for now, and you're going to have to wait for the vlog to see why I rate it 2 stars and what I thought of it. So that's all we're going to say. Next up, we're moving up slightly, but we're still kind of in the dregs of it, and we are talking about Misinterpretation, which I gave 2.5 stars. So this one just felt really disappointing to me because I was really intrigued by the beginning of it, and I really enjoyed, like, I would say the first 40% of this book I was thinking, oh, this could be like a 4-star, 5-star, like depending on how it ends. Like, it was really intriguing and I liked how it was written, and I usually really like stories about this topic. So in this book you're following a translator. She gets asked to translate for this man, this Albanian man, as he goes to a dentist appointment because he has previously experienced torture. So she goes and translates for him and kind of immediately begins to feel a connection to him as well. But she is recommended not to basically translate for people who have anything in their life that is reflecting in your own life, because it can get very messy very quickly. Her husband tells her not to continue translating for him, but she decides that she will when he asks her to translate his therapy sessions. That's kind of the beginning thread of the first plot of this story. Unfortunately, that kind of gets dropped quite quickly. There's a separate plot that comes up. Basically, our main character in this is a very kind and like warm-hearted person. Not that she comes across particularly nice, but she is a very generous person with her time and kind of gathers around her lots of people that she helps. So you're following a few different stories based on the people around her. There was kind of a little bit of a mystery going on. There was a bit of an intrigue, but a lot of this just felt like the main character making really unusual decisions that didn't make any sense, and a lot of these plot threads are kind of taken up and then they are dropped, and then characters just appear and then disappear, and then by the end of it I was like, wait, what are we trying to say here? Like, so many things I was like, as I was going along thinking, oh yeah, like this is where we're going, this is maybe what the author's trying to say, then it just gets completely dropped and like something else comes up and I'm like, wait, what? But it doesn't mean that those threads weren't interesting, it's just that none of them were pulled through. There was a very like tumultuous relationship with the husband in this that I thought was like, you know, explored quite well. There was the initial thing with the translator. There was a different story of a woman being stalked. She takes a trip to Albania to visit her mum, who's got agoraphobia, which basically refuses to leave her house. There's so many different things going on in this story, but then by the end you're just like, wait, why? What happened? Maybe that is the entire point. Maybe it is like misinterpretation, like you're constantly misinterpreting the author's actions. I do, like, the author and the main character, like maybe that is the entire point, but I can't say I enjoyed it that much because of that. So I like being confused sometimes, but I do need to get something from the end of a book. So 2.5 from me. There was stuff there, but just didn't end up coming together. Next up, let's quickly talk about another Booker Prize one, and rating it slightly higher than the last one, but still, I wouldn't even say this comes up to a 3-star read from me. And that's One Boat by Jonathan Buckley. This is about a woman who goes to visit this very small Greek town. She went there when her mother died 8 or 9 years ago, and then she returns back after her father dies. So she's meeting all the people she met the first time and getting re-involved with their lives. As you're reading this book, I quite liked that the two visits were intertwined with one another, and I do think it had like quite a strong sense of this town and this place. I mean, it kind of felt like it could be anywhere, but also felt like I've been there. I don't know, this one might be kind of fun to read on holiday if you're in a small Greek town, or kind of anywhere in Europe, I guess. The thing I didn't love about this one is that there was all these interesting characters, or like varying levels of interesting, these different characters around this town that she was interacting with. And there's the plot kind of associated with them. It's very plot light, I would say, in this. It's not a heavy plot. But then there's also like these very long conversations, or these long internal philosophical ramblings, I would say. And some of them were interesting, some of them weren't. And then some of the conversations with other people were interesting, some of them weren't. And I just felt like, I don't know, they didn't mesh very well together for me. And I felt like I still didn't know who this character was by the end. And I don't think they know who they are either. Maybe that's the point, because a lot of what she is grappling with is who she is and how she's perceived versus other people. The main character's a lawyer, so she was a very good kind of conversationalist to some of these people, but then again, I don't know, there's something missing. There is stuff that I liked here. I'm not going to sit here and rant about and say that it was awful, but also it ultimately I can't recommend it. It felt like there was like a lot of different insights that the character was trying to have, but they all felt pretty shallow. Like, I don't know if this is a book about identity, like I said, or if this is a book about grief, or if this is a book about crime and punishment, or if this is a book about trying to be a poet or trying to be a writer. Yeah, ultimately, I don't know what this was trying to be, and I don't think it worked for me. This is a 2.5 stars for me. Also, right around the 2.5 slash maybe I'd say this is 2.5 as well, is a cozy romantasy that I read this month, which is The Enchanted Greenhouse. This one is the second one in the series. The first one was The Spell Shop, which I was slightly disappointed in, and in a way I actually really enjoyed The Enchanted Greenhouse more, I think, because I knew what I was kind of going in for. I wanted something light, I wanted something very different to all of the literary stuff I was reading, and it did deliver in that sense. It was a fun, whimsical story. It felt very surface level. This is about a woman who is in the first book, actually, she is mentioned in the first book, but she was basically turned into a statue for many years after illegally using magic, and then she is one day like unfrozen, and she finds herself on this island with an enchanted greenhouse and a man who is looking for someone who can perform magic for him. She's obviously very conflicted. She doesn't want to use magic. She got into a lot of trouble for it. She's kind of working through that. There is a romance here. I would say the romance is pretty flat. The main male character in particular didn't have much going for him. He just felt like he could be absolutely anybody. But I did like the very whimsical setting of this story. Like, there's all of these different greenhouses. They all have different plants in them. They were described very beautifully. I think that's kind of an interesting and unique setting. And the island itself that they're on is very snowy and cold. And that kind of carried it for me, to be honest. I did like the setting. But yeah, overall, surface level, cute, sweet. Wouldn't say, you know, this is going to be a life-changing book for you in any way. Okay, so I'm going to start being more positive now, because we're getting up to the books that I did enjoy more. So this next book we're jumping up now to like 3.5 star range, and it's another Booker Prize one, and it is Seascraper. This one I did like. This one was a story about a young man who's only 20 years old, but he's kind of been beaten down a lot by his life. He works a very demanding job, basically scraping shrimp off the beach and selling it. And he lives with his mum, who was very young when she had him. She's only 36. She seems like she's a much older woman, but they do have quite a close relationship. But secretly, this young man, just all he wants to do is kind of be a performer and be a singer, and he's kind of been practicing in secret. And then one day, a American man comes to town and he spots him on the beach and thinks that this is the perfect setting for his new movie. So he pays him to go out and take him out. I would say a lot of the first part of this story is very slow. It's very kind of atmospheric, but it does really successfully build up the life of this young man and the atmosphere of this town. And then quite quickly, like I was kind of getting to the point where I was getting a little bit bored, but then almost all of a sudden it kind of really kicks up pace. A lot of stuff starts happening and the book in its nature changes slightly. It becomes a little bit more dreamlike or speculative, and I really enjoy that as a little bit of an extra added layer as well. I really enjoyed the writing of this. It was very easy to read but very beautiful as well, and I liked being in the mind of this young man who's got kind of like this slightly poetic soul, but he's like very gruff and rough on the outside. I would say though that I was disappointed by the ending of this. I would say like I enjoyed the first third. I really liked the middle third, and then I was disappointed in the last third. So it's ended up being like a 3.5 for me, because I just feel like it didn't quite stick the landing. It felt a bit abrupt. Sorry if the lighting is going to change drastically. I think we're getting a storm or something. Like there's lots of dark clouds now. But anyway, we'll keep going. And I think part of that kind of failure to stick the landing is maybe because the strength of this was this atmosphere, and how do you kind of like wrap that up, you know? But I would definitely say I did really enjoy reading this one. It felt like a very sweet story. It felt hopeful, and yeah, I enjoyed it. So 3.5 stars, and I would recommend this one. Next up, we have a book that I'm honestly kind of confused about where I left it. I don't know. This keeps changing in my mind after I finished reading it, which is interesting. And that is Flashlight. When I first finished this book, I think I rated it around 4 stars. Subsequently, I think it's gone down in my estimations, unfortunately. I think I had like that thing where you finish a really big, long, chunky book, and then just partly the relief of finishing it, you kind of like, you're so happy that you rate it a little bit higher than you actually would have normally. So I think that this is more like a 3.5 stars for me now. I'm looking back on it. I don't think it's gonna stay with me, and actually, unfortunately, the things that are staying with me more are the things I didn't like as much about it. This feels like a very ambitious story in terms of it's going all over the world. It's spanning a huge number of years. It's following a few different characters, and it does a good job, but not a great job at managing so many different things. You are following this family. At the beginning, you're following a 10-year-old Louisa and then her 2 parents, and you're following all 3 of their lives kind of back and forward in time, spanning across America, Korea, Japan. When Louisa is about 10 years old, her father goes missing and is presumed to have drowned in the ocean after they go walking one night, but Louisa herself can't remember what happens. Oh my god, a storm's starting up. The rain is going crazy. Can you hear it? Well, I'm glad I'm inside today. So the things I liked about this book are, I liked the exploration of the kind of geopolitics going on between these countries and what it was doing to the characters, their identity, who they were, and how the countries had shaped them, and then also been such a huge part of their identity, but also just like physically where they were able to live and be themselves. I did, for the most part, enjoy the different characters, but some of them I enjoyed more than others, and some of them I enjoyed much more at the beginning than where we ended up with them. If it's talking about it as a portrait of a family, then I think that it didn't quite pull it together. Like, I didn't get that emotional pull from them as this trio, as this family. It did feel like they were living their individual separate lives, and at times you're like, oh my god, are they even a family? Like, what's going on? There are surprises in this. There are beautiful passages. There's a lot in here. It's just the things that I find myself remembering other things that I didn't love as much, and also the writing itself is very, very long-winded. If you like heavy descriptions, then I think that you'll really get on with this. Sometimes that does get a little bit tiring for me. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like I'm not reviewing this very effectively because I have slightly confused feelings about it. But yeah, ultimately pick this one up at your own risk because I don't know what to tell you. Next up, another Booker Prize book, we have Audition. This one I ended up really enjoying. This is a book that is confusing, but I liked being confused for this one. So in the beginning of this book, you're following a actress. She goes to meet a much younger man for a lunch date, or a lunch meeting, I should say. And you're kind of guessing why they are here. You're following their conversation, and there seems to be like some context that you're missing. And so you're having to make assumptions about what's going on in this scene as it's kind of set out. And then at one point in this book, it kind of switches up on you again, and then you're making a whole new set of assumptions about what has happened, what is going on, and who these characters are. I just thought this was a really effective way at portraying the idea that, yeah, we are all actors on the stage of life, and also what really is truth apart from the way in which you're living your life that becomes truth. It had a like very mysterious kind of tenseness to this book that I really enjoyed, and I ultimately really liked the writing as well. I think if you like definitive answers, then you won't enjoy this book, but if you are okay with being left in a very ambiguous space, or if you just enjoy kind of being confused and having open-ended plots and questions not answered, then I think you will enjoy this one. There was some really almost like funny lines in this, like these small interactions between characters that are just described in such a way as to make them seem so not even over the top, but like the way that she describes one character giving another like a very loose handshake as almost a form of aggression. It's just like there's constant little surprises in the writing as well, and so I did really enjoy this one, and I rated it 4 stars. Now we're getting into talking about some of the best books of the month. Firstly, I'm not going to talk about this for too long because we're going to do an entire discussion about this on Wednesday when we're doing the live show. The next book that I read is Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton, and this is our book club pick for the month of August. So we're doing the live show for this on Wednesday, and we'll be doing a full discussion. So if you've read it, even if you didn't read it with the book club, then please come and join that live show, because I always get very nervous that no one's going to show up and I'm just going to have to sit there by myself. So please come and just sit there with me. If you are free for about 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to be doing it at 7 p.m. UK time on Wednesday. There's already should be a link up on my profile that you can click for a notification for, and I'd really deeply appreciate if you do come and talk about this book with me. Also because this is a very beautiful book. This is a classic of South African literature. This is one of those classics that I just really understand why it is taught in schools, why so many people are told to read this one, why it is still recommended so much today. So in this book, you're following a Zulu pastor, and he lives out in the rural countryside of South Africa, but he is basically really worried about his son and also his sister, who both moved to Johannesburg, and then he's not heard from them since. So he travels into Johannesburg and is trying to search for his son and for his sister, and basically he gets the biggest kind of culture clash ever by coming to this big city, and he kind of gets completely stirred up in events that are happening there to do with his son. I don't want to go too much into my thoughts on this. I do have some questionable, like this wasn't a perfect book for me. It's not a 5-star read. It's very, very beautiful. It's very rich. It's very deep, and I loved a lot of the political writing in this. I do have some like more, I don't know, maybe they're controversial thoughts about this one, but I'm going to wait to talk about it in the live show. So please join me for the live show. Maybe I'll link it in the description below as well. So maybe just click that link below and have your notification on for the live show. But finally, if you've stayed this long, then you're rewarded with me talking about 2 5-star reads that I read this month. Honestly, I love them both so much. One I read literally only yesterday. I read it all in one day, and it is of course Ursula K. Le Guin, my favourite author, I think. This is The Word for World is Forest, and I knew I was going to love this one, and you guys knew I was going to love this one. I had so many comments from you guys, and actually we talked about this in last month's live show as well. A few of you were saying that you'd recently read it. yeah, thanks guys. It was such a good recommendation and I absolutely loved it. This is a story, I'm not going to tell you much because it's very short. Like I said, I did read it in one day. It's about 100 pages long. But this story is basically about a human colony living on this forest-like planet. The humans are sending back wood. They are like basically there to log this forest and send the wood back to Earth. But also living on this planet is a race of peaceful, human-like aliens, and as you may predict, they are not getting along too well with these colonizing humans. This book is just classic Ursula K. Le Guin in terms of like the world building. The immediate world building is incredible. You feel completely thrown in. You're following a few different characters, some of them who are written so well and so frustratingly that you are like genuinely feeling tense and annoyed as you're reading just from the perspective of the character. But also it's exploring what it means to be human. It's exploring this within her wider world as well. There's a few different books that are connected, Ursula K. Le Guin, and I've read a couple of them and I love the connections between the worlds and kind of how it's coming through and developing, and like how technology affects the political development of this like interspace planetary politics. It's just very, very interesting. But also at the core of all of her books is, you know, what does it mean to be a human, and what's our relationship to our environment and to nature, and who are we to each other. It's just, there's a lot of beauty in this book. I would say, yes, is it heavy-handed in terms of its themes of like the imperialist kind of like humans coming in? Yes, like that is, it's not the most subtle in that way. But I don't think you always have to be subtle, especially in such a small book. Like it can be a straightforward kind of ethos that you're trying to explore, and that's what she does here, but she does it in such a beautiful way, and I just absolutely love Ursula K. Le Guin. So this is another one down for my Ursula K. Le Guin reading challenge, I guess. I'm going to read all of them. Which one am I going to read next? I might go back and read her very, very first one, which is Rokanan's World. So tell me what I should read next for Ursula K. Le Guin, because I just absolutely love. So that one was a 5-star read, easy 5-star for me. And then honestly, the surprise standout of the month is going to be Endling. This is another 5-star read for me. I absolutely loved this book. This is another Booker Prize one, and I do have this in my first vlog that I did if you want to go and see. This book is just one of those ones that I'm just like, when I finished it, I was like, that is literature. That is a book. This is how you write a book, because it's just not even just the plot, the characters, the structure, the way it's written narratively, the language. There is so much in this that I just was obsessed with. Basically in this story, it is in modern day Ukraine, and you are following Eva, who is a scientist basically concerned with conserving the lives of different snail species. She has built a trailer to go around and try and save as many snails as she can. She also, to try and make some money, gets involved with these kind of bridal romance tours where Western men come to Ukraine, they go on these romance tours and they get to date different women and then maybe like offer one of them marriage and take them out of Ukraine. She doesn't really care about these bridal tours at all. She just does it to get a little bit of money to put back into her research. But during her interactions with these romance tours, she comes in contact with these two other sisters who are on their own. Like, they are young, but they have their own wants for being involved in these bridal tours as well. So these three get together. It's a hugely entertaining, interesting plot. I love the conservation angle. Endling, the title is basically the name for the last of its line, the last kind of snail existing before it goes extinct. And it just comes up in so many different ways, and it's very, very beautiful. But there is a huge structural shift in the middle of this book that throws you off balance in the best way possible, and it just made this book something that was going from being very, very enjoyable to something that I don't think I'll ever forget, and I absolutely loved it. It might not work for you, it might not work for everyone. This is a strange book, but it absolutely worked for me. There's so many different things in this that I just was really, really obsessed with. And I do just think you just have to pick this one up and read it and just see what you think. Because even if you don't like it, if you don't like what it does, I think you can appreciate what it's trying to do. That is another 5-star read from me. And so, so happy that I read that this month. So that is the 13 books that I ended up reading this month. I'm actually currently reading 2 other books. I am finally reading Flights. If you've been watching my TBRs, you know that I've just been putting this one off for so long. I'm only about 30 pages in, so I'm kind of bragging, but I'm not that far in. I'm enjoying it so far. It's very strange. I don't know where it's going to go, but I am enjoying it. So I'll keep reading this one and tell you my thoughts next month. I want to just say here a huge thank you to my Patreons. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you so much for supporting me, for supporting this channel, and just for making this the best place to be on the internet. I would love to know what you've been reading this month. I would love to know a book that you loved, a book that maybe you wouldn't recommend if you read more than one book, or if you just read one, then tell me that one and tell me your review about it as well. And obviously also tell me if you've read any of the books that I've been talking about and what your thoughts on them are as well, because I always love to know that as well. Please, if you haven't already, would you give this video a like, because that really helps me out. I think YouTube is changing how it's showing people videos potentially, and maybe likes are more important than ever. It's like a rumor I heard, I don't know, but I'm just gonna ask you, please, if you don't mind, to give this video a like. I probably should have asked at the beginning of the video, but I always forget to say stuff like this. But anyway, please give this a like, and if you haven't already, then please remember to subscribe as well. But I think that's everything from me today, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!